The massive ship came down through the clouds at exactly 3:47 in the morning. It was the size of a small city, black as night, and it made no sound at all. People in New York looked up from their phones and their late-night walks and their taxicabs. They saw something that should have made them scream. Most of them just took pictures. The ship stopped right above the United Nations building. It hung there in the sky like it was waiting for something. Lights flickered across its surface in patterns that meant nothing to anyone watching from below. Commander Xyloth stood on the bridge of his vessel and looked down at the blue planet beneath him. He had done this 17 times before with 17 different worlds. Every single time, the pattern was the same. He would appear, make his demands, and watch the primitive species below fall into chaos. They would cry. They would pray. They would fight each other in their panic. And then they would surrender. Xyloth had gray skin that stretched tight over his skull. He had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on his face. His mouth was small and lipless. He wore armor that had been forged in the heart of a dying star, and he carried a weapon that could turn a city into ash with a single shot. He was, by any reasonable measure, terrifying. He pressed a button on his command console. Every screen on Earth flickered. Every television, every computer, every phone suddenly showed the same image. His face, primitive beings of Earth, Xyloth said. His voice was deep and cold. The translation software turned his words into every language on the planet at the same time. I am Commander Xyloth of the Vexery Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. You have 24 of your hours to surrender completely. If you do not, we will destroy everything you have ever built. Every city, every home, every living thing. Resistance is futile. Your weapons cannot hurt us. Your prayers will not save you. Submit or face annihilation. The broadcast ended. Xyloth leaned back in his chair and waited for the panic to begin. At the Pentagon, General Larry Morrison had just poured himself his 3rd cup of coffee. He was 62 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had seen 3 wars and countless crises. When the alien face appeared on the screen in front of him, he just stared at it for a long moment. Did that thing just say resistance is futile? He asked, like from Star Trek? His aide, Captain Debbie Grant, was already looking at her phone. She was 34, sharp as a knife, and she had a gift for knowing exactly what the public was thinking at any given moment. Right now, she was trying very hard not to laugh. Sir, she said, you need to see this. She turned her phone toward him. The #AliensCan't meme was trending worldwide. In the 15 minutes since the broadcast, people had already created thousands of jokes. Someone had put a tiny hat on Xyloth's head. Someone else had added googly eyes over his real eyes. A teenager had made a video pretending to be scared, then cutting to a clip of himself yawning. Is anyone actually panicking? Morrison asked. Some people, sir. But mostly, she scrolled through her phone. Mostly they're making fun of him. In Ohio, a 17-year-old girl named Katie Barnes was sitting in her bedroom. She had seen the alien broadcast like everyone else. Her first thought was not fear. Her first thought was that the alien's head looked like a gray thumb. She grabbed her phone and opened TikTok. Within 10 minutes, she had created a dance video. She called it the Xyloth Shuffle. It involved wiggling your head back and forth while making your eyes go wide. By the time the sun rose, 2 million people had watched it. Xyloth monitored Earth's communications from his ship. He had software that could translate any language and analyze any signal. He expected to find emergency broadcasts. He expected to find military communications. He expected to find religious leaders telling their followers to prepare for the end. Instead, he found memes. He did not know what a meme was. His translation software tried to explain it, but the explanation made no sense. A meme was a picture with words on it that was supposed to be funny. But why were they making pictures of him with words on them? One image showed his face next to something called a Karen, with the caption, "When you travel 50,000 light years to speak to Earth's manager." Another showed him looking confused with the words, "Came to destroy humanity. Found out they already doing it themselves." "Lieutenant Vox," Xyloth said to his second-in-command. "What is happening?" Vox was younger than Xyloth, with smoother skin and a nervous way of blinking all four of his eyes at once. He had been studying the human communications for the past hour, and he looked deeply troubled. "Commander, I do not understand it either," Vox admitted. "They appear to be treating our invasion as entertainment." "Entertainment?" "Yes, sir. They are making jokes. They are laughing. One of their news programs just spent 10 minutes discussing whether your face looks more like a thumb or a toe. I do not know what these things are, but the audience found it very amusing." Xyloth felt something he had never felt before during a conquest. He felt confused. The Kelmari had wept when he appeared in their sky. The Drothians had immediately begun firing every weapon they had, which had been useless, but at least showed proper respect. The humans were doing neither of these things. The humans were laughing at him in a small apartment in Brooklyn. A young man named Danny Cruz sat with his roommate, Heather Mills. They'd watched the alien broadcast together. Now they were watching the response unfold online. "You know what I love about humans?" Danny said, cracking open a beer. It was 4 a.m, and the world might be ending, but he figured that was as good a reason as any to drink. "What's that?" Heather asked. She was eating cereal straight from the box, which she always did when she was stressed. "An alien shows up and threatens to kill us all, and our first response is to roast him. Not panic, not prayer, just pure, unfiltered mockery." Heather laughed. "What else are we supposed to do? Cry about it? I got work in the morning. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die laughing." Across the world, billions of people were having similar conversations. Fear existed, certainly. There were people who were scared. There were people who were praying. There were people who were stocking up on supplies and preparing for the worst. But mostly, there was laughter. There was mockery. There was the strange, defiant humor that humans had always used to face the things that frightened them. Xyloth watched it all from his ship above. New York. He had given them 24 hours to surrender. Nearly 1 hour had already passed, and not a single government had contacted him to discuss terms. Instead, the President of the United States had posted a message on something called Twitter that simply said, "New alien just dropped. Mid." Xyloth did not know what mid meant, but his translation software suggested it was not a compliment. He was beginning to suspect that this conquest might not go according to plan. 4 hours had passed since the alien broadcast. The sun was rising over New York City, painting the sky orange and pink behind the massive black ship that still hung above the United Nations building. People on the streets below were taking selfies with the ship in the background. A hot dog vendor had set up his cart directly beneath it and was doing the best business of his entire life at the United Nations headquarters. The Security Council had finally gathered for an emergency meeting. Representatives from every major nation sat around the famous circular table. They looked tired. Some of them looked annoyed. None of them looked particularly frightened. The American representative was a woman named Patricia Holmes. She was 55 years old with silver hair and a reputation for being impossible to impress. She had been woken up at 4 a.m. for this meeting, and she was not happy about it. "So," she said, looking around the table, "does anyone have any ideas about how we should respond to our visitors?" The British representative, A thin man named Colin Price raised his hand. I suggest we ask them if they would like some tea. It seems only polite. Several people laughed. The Russian representative, speaking through his translator, said something that made his translator snort with amusement before composing himself. The representative suggests we ask the aliens if they have tried turning their ship off and on again, the translator said. The chamber erupted with laughter. Patricia Holmes covered her mouth with her hand, trying to maintain some dignity. Perhaps we should take this seriously, the Chinese representative said, though even she was smiling. Why? Asked the French representative. They have given us 24 hours. We have plenty of time to laugh now and panic later. Outside the building, the mockery continued to spread across the planet like wildfire. In Texas, a man named Bobby Price had woken up early to check on his smoker. Bobby was 50 years old, overweight, and proud of both facts. When he saw the news about the alien invasion, he did what any reasonable Texan would do. He set up his smoker in his front yard, put on his biggest brisket, and made a sign. The sign read, "Aliens welcome. Brisket ready in 12 hours. That's how we do ultimatums on Earth." His neighbor, a retired teacher named Martha Cole, came over to see what he was doing. "Bobby, are you seriously making barbecue during an alien invasion?" she asked. "Martha, if I'm going to die today, I'm going to die doing what I love," Bobby said. "Besides, maybe they're hungry. You ever think of that? They came all this way, probably didn't pack any snacks." By noon, Bobby's front yard had become a block party. Someone had brought a speaker and was playing country music. Kids were running around with sparklers left over from the 4th of July. A local news crew showed up to film the whole thing. And Bobby's face ended up on screens around the world, on the internet. The mockery had evolved into something even stranger. The website Reddit had created multiple threads dedicated to analyzing every aspect of the alien ship. One user, who called himself Cosmic Toast 42, had written a detailed post about the ship's design flaws. "Look at those exhaust ports," he wrote. "They're completely exposed. Did these aliens not watch Star Wars? Do they not know what happens when you leave your exhaust ports unprotected? A single fighter pilot could take this thing down." Another user responded, "Maybe they're speed holes. They make the ship go faster." Someone else added, "Ship looks like my ex's personality. Big, dark, and full of hot air." The thread had over 50,000 comments within 6 hours. In Japan, the government released an official statement. It was a single image. Someone in the Japanese Foreign Ministry had created a picture in the style of Japanese animation. It showed Xyloth with large, sad eyes, surrounded by sparkles. With the text, "Notice me, Earth Senpai." The image went viral in minutes on the alien ship. Commander Xyloth was having the worst day of his very long life. He stood in his command center, surrounded by screens showing Earth's communications. Every screen showed something that made him want to scream. People were not taking him seriously. They were treating his invasion like a joke, like entertainment, like something to laugh about with their friends. "Lieutenant Vox," he growled, "explain this to me." Vox was sweating, which was something Vexery did when they were very nervous. Gray liquid beaded on his forehead and dripped down his face. "Commander, I have been analyzing their behavior for several hours now," Vox said. "I believe I understand what is happening. Then tell me." The humans are using something called humor as a defense mechanism. When they are frightened or stressed, they make jokes. It helps them feel better. It helps them feel like they have some control over the situation. Xyloth stared at him. "They are making jokes because they are scared." "Yes, Commander. Then why don't they show their fear? Why don't they surrender?" Vox hesitated. "I believe, Commander, that for humans, showing fear would be worse than death. They would rather die laughing than live crying. Xyloth did not understand this at all. In his culture, fear was a natural response to danger. You felt fear, you showed fear, and then you either fought or surrendered. That was how it worked. That was how it had always worked, but these humans refused to follow the rules. A new report came in from one of his analysts. Xyloth read it with growing disbelief. The humans had created something called a drinking game based on his broadcast. Every time someone said, "Resistance is futile," you took a drink. Every time someone made a joke about his head, you took a drink. Every time someone posted a meme, you took a drink. According to the report, millions of humans were now drunk. They're drinking? Xyloth said. Their world might end in 20 hours and they're drinking? It appears to be a celebration, Commander, Vox said weakly. A celebration of what? I believe they are celebrating. U.S., Commander. Our arrival. They find it exciting. Xyloth sat down heavily in his command chair. He had conquered 17 civilizations. He had made emperors beg for mercy. He had destroyed planets without feeling a moment of guilt. But he had never, in all his years, felt as confused as he did right now. On Earth, the party continued. In New York, someone had organized a concert in Central Park. Thousands of people gathered to listen to music and watch the alien ship hovering in the distance. The band played a song they had written that morning called "Grey Dude in the Sky." In London, protesters gathered outside Parliament with signs that read, "Aliens go home and Earth is closed." But they were laughing and taking pictures with each other. It was less of a protest and more of a party. In Sydney, where it was already evening, people had gathered on the beaches to watch the sunset and talk about whether the aliens would really attack. Most of them did not think so. Most of them thought this was all some kind of misunderstanding. And in a small apartment in Chicago, a young woman named Nikki Shaw sat with her cat on her lap and watched the news. "You know what, Mr. Whiskers?" she said to her cat. "I think we're going to be okay. I don't know why, but I just have a feeling." Mr. Whiskers meowed. "Yeah," Nikki said. "I think so too." 8 hours had passed. 16 hours remained. And humanity was just getting started. 12 hours had passed since the ultimatum. Commander Xyloth stood at the window of his ship and looked down at Earth. The planet was beautiful, he had to admit. Blue oceans, green forests, white clouds swirling across its surface. It would be a shame to destroy it, but Xyloth was starting to think he might have no choice. The humans had not taken him seriously for 12 hours. Not one government had contacted him to discuss surrender. Not one military had stood down. Instead, they'd spent half a day making jokes about his face and creating dances based on his name. It was humiliating. "Lieutenant Vox," Xyloth said, "prepare the main cannon. We need to show these creatures that we are not joking." Vox looked nervous. "Commander, are you sure? If we attack, they might retaliate." Xyloth laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Retaliate? With what?" "We have scanned their entire planet. Their most advanced weapons are nuclear devices that would barely scratch our shields. They have nothing that can hurt us." "Yes, Commander," Vox said. "I will prepare the cannon." The Vexery ship's main weapon charged for exactly 3 minutes. A bright light gathered at the front of the vessel, growing brighter and brighter until it was almost painful to look at. Then it fired. The beam of energy shot down through the atmosphere and struck a small island in the Pacific Ocean. The island was uninhabited. It was just rocks and sand and a few trees. It had no name that anyone remembered. In an instant, it was gone. The energy beam turned the island into vapor. When the light faded, there was nothing left but steam rising from the ocean. Xyloth smiled. Now they would understand. Now they would fear him. He turned on the planet-wide broadcast again. His face appeared on every screen on Earth. "People of Earth," he said, "that was a demonstration of our power. A small island has been destroyed. The next target will be a city. You have 12 hours remaining. Surrender now." The broadcast ended. Xyloth waited for the panic to begin. It did not. Instead, within minutes, the internet exploded with a new wave of content. But it was not fear. It was not panic. It was outrage, but not the kind Xyloth expected. A young man in California named Eddie Reyes posted a video that got 10 million views in 1 hour. He was standing in his kitchen, looking directly at the camera, speaking with passionate anger. "So let me get this straight," Eddie said. "This alien dude shows up, threatens to destroy our planet, and then blows up a random island in the middle of nowhere? That's it? That's the big demonstration? Bro, we have bombs that could do that. We've been doing that since the 1940s. I've seen better explosions in Michael Bay movies." He threw his hands up in the air. "I'm not scared. I'm disappointed. I expected better from an advanced alien civilization. This is embarrassing." Across the planet, millions of people shared similar feelings. The destruction of the island had not made them fear the aliens. It had made them think the aliens were weak. "They blew up some rocks," said a woman named Carla Santos on a news program. "Big deal. You know what we did in 1945? We blew up 2 cities, with 1 bomb each. And those were our grandparents. You think we're scared of someone who can blow up an empty island?" The response from humanity's governments was even more surprising. In Washington, the president called a press conference. She stood at a podium in front of a crowd of reporters, looking calm and almost amused. "The alien vessel has demonstrated its weapons capability," she said. "In response, I have authorized the declassification of several defense programs that have been secret until now." She pressed a button, and images appeared on the screens behind her. "These are our orbital defense platforms," she said. "They have been operational since 1987. We built them during the Cold War because we were worried about nuclear attacks from space. They are capable of targeting and destroying any object in Earth's orbit." The reporters murmured with surprise. The president continued. "We also have these," she said, showing another image. "Laser defense systems positioned on every continent. They were designed to shoot down incoming missiles, but they work just as well on spaceships." She smiled slightly. "We didn't tell anyone about these things because we didn't want to start a panic. But since our visitors seem to think we're helpless, I thought it was time to set the record straight." Similar announcements came from other countries. China revealed a network of railgun emplacements hidden on the far side of the moon. They had been there for 15 years. Russia released a video of a nuclear submarine surfacing in the Arctic Ocean. Someone had painted a giant middle finger on its hull. The captain stood on the deck, smoking a cigarette and waving at the camera. Even smaller countries joined in. Switzerland, famously neutral in every conflict, announced that they had been secretly developing anti-spacecraft missiles for decades. "We are neutral," their representative said, "but we are not stupid." On the Vexery ship, Commander Xyloth watched these announcements with growing concern. His analysts had scanned Earth's surface for weapons, but they had not found these things. They had been hidden too well. How is this possible? He demanded. How do these primitives have such weapons? Lieutenant Vox pulled up a historical analysis. "Commander, it appears that the humans have been preparing for an alien invasion for over 70 years. They have written stories about it. They have made entertainment about it. And quietly, secretly, they have been building weapons to fight it. Why? They didn't know we existed. They didn't know, Commander. But they suspected. And they prepared anyway. Xyloth felt something cold in his stomach. He had assumed the humans were primitive because their technology was less advanced than his. He had assumed they would be easy to conquer because they spent so much time fighting each other. But he was beginning to realize that he had made a terrible mistake. The humans were not weak. They were dangerous. They were so dangerous that they had built weapons capable of fighting alien invasions just in case. They had been waiting for this moment for decades, and they still weren't scared. At the Pentagon, General Larry Morrison was smiling for the first time all day. He stood in the command center, surrounded by screens showing military assets from around the world. Assets that had been secret for years. Assets that were now being prepared for possible combat. "You know what I love about this situation?" he said to Captain Debbie Grant. "What's that, sir?" "We've been preparing for alien invasion since Roswell. Every president since Truman has put money into secret defense programs. We have weapons hidden everywhere. On the moon, in orbit, under the ocean, in bunkers all over the world." He laughed. "And the aliens thought we were primitive. They thought we would just surrender. They have no idea who they're dealing with." Grant nodded. "The internet is calling it FAFO, sir. What does that mean?" "It means find out, sir. They're saying the aliens are about to find out." Morrison smiled. "Yes," he said. "I believe they are." Back on Earth's surface, the party atmosphere had shifted into something different. People were still laughing, still making jokes. But now there was something else underneath the laughter. There was pride. There was defiance. A video went viral of an old man in Texas standing in his front yard with a shotgun. He looked at the camera and said, "I fought in Vietnam. My daddy fought in World War II. His daddy fought in World War I. You think some gray-skinned fool from outer space is gonna make me surrender? Boy, you better think again." The video got 50 million views. 12 hours had passed. 12 hours remained. And humanity was not surrendering. Humanity was getting ready for a fight. 18 hours had passed since Commander Xyloth issued his ultimatum. 6 hours remained. And something strange was happening on the Vexery ship. The crew was falling apart. It had started small. A few crew members watching human entertainment during their breaks. A few jokes shared in the corridors about the strange creatures on the planet below. But it had grown into something much bigger. Lieutenant Vox stood before Commander Xyloth with a report that made his hands shake. "Commander," Vox said, "I need to inform you of a situation developing among the crew." "What situation?" "The humans have been sending us messages. Care packages. Gifts." Xyloth stared at him. "What?" "Small drones, Commander. They have been flying up to our ship for the past several hours. Our defense systems destroyed the first few, but then we realized they were not weapons. They were carrying packages." Vox held up a small box. Inside was something brown and sweet-smelling. "This is called a brownie, Commander. It is a type of food." There was a note attached that said, "You seem stressed. Sugar helps. Love, Earth." Xyloth felt his eye twitch. "They sent us food?" "Yes, Commander. They have sent us many things. Food, toys, something called stress balls that you squeeze when you are anxious. Notes with messages of support. One message said, 'Hope you're okay up there, buddy. Conquest is hard. Here's a Snickers. They are showing us kindness?" "Yes, Commander. They appear to feel sorry for us." Xyloth sat down heavily. He did not know what to do with this information. In all his years of conquest, no one had ever felt sorry for him. No one had ever sent him gifts. No one had ever tried to make him feel better. It was deeply confusing. But the situation with the care packages was only the beginning of his problems. "There is more, Commander," Vox said. "The crew has been reading human communications, watching their entertainment, learning about their culture. And it is affecting them. Affecting them how? Vox swallowed nervously. This morning, I found Engineer Kral watching something called cat videos. He had been watching them for 4 hours. When I asked him what he was doing, he said, "Look at them, Vox. They are so small and soft. I want one." Xyloth closed his eyes. Continue. Weapons Officer Threem has developed what humans call a meme addiction. He spends all his free time looking at pictures with words on them and laughing. He showed me one this morning of your face with the caption, "When you come to destroy Earth, but the vibes are immaculate." I do not know what this means, but he found it very funny. Is there more? Yes, Commander. Navigator Plix has fallen in love with a human musician named Taylor Swift. He has listened to her music for 16 hours straight. He says he wants to cancel the invasion so he can attend something called the Iris Tour. Zeloth put his head in his hands. His crew was falling apart. They had been hardened warriors when they arrived at Earth. Now they were watching cat videos and listening to pop music. But the worst news was yet to come. Commander, Vox said quietly, there is one more thing. What? This morning, I caught myself doing the Xyloth shuffle. Xyloth looked up sharply. The what? The dance, Commander. The one the humans created based on your name. I was doing it in my quarters when I woke up. I did not even realize I was doing it. The movements just happened. For a long moment, Xyloth said nothing. Then he stood up and walked to the window. We have made a terrible mistake, he said. We came here to conquer these creatures. But they are conquering us. Not with weapons. Not with force. With whatever this is. On Earth, the humans had noticed a change in the alien ship. It had been 18 hours since the ultimatum, and the ship had done nothing since destroying the island. No more attacks. No more threats. Just a silence. People began to wonder if the aliens were having second thoughts. In a bar in Chicago, Nikki Shaw was serving drinks to a crowded room. Everyone was watching the news, which showed the alien ship hovering silently in the sky. The scrolling text at the bottom of the screen said, "Alien ship silent for 6 hours, experts confused." You think they gave up? Asked one of her customers, a man named Greg Palmer. He was an accountant who had taken the day off work because, as he put it, if the world's ending, I'm not spending my last day doing taxes. I don't know, Nikki said. Maybe they're just thinking about it. We've given them a lot to think about. We've given them memes, Greg said. We've given them cat videos. We've given them brownies and stress balls and notes telling them everything will be okay. He laughed. You know what? I think we might actually be winning. Not because we're stronger than them, but because we're weirder than them. Across the planet, people were having similar conversations. The fear that some had felt at the beginning was fading. In its place was something like confidence. Something like pride. Humans had faced the threat of extinction before. They had faced wars and plagues and natural disasters. And every time, they had survived. Not because they were the strongest or smartest, but because they refused to give up. Because they found ways to laugh even when everything was falling apart. On the internet, a new hashtag was trending, Weird Wins. People were sharing stories about all the times in human history when being strange and unpredictable had helped them survive. Someone shared a story about how British soldiers in World War I had confused German troops by playing football in no man's land. Another person shared a story about how a Japanese ship in World War II had been so confused by American sailors waving at them that they forgot to attack. Humans have always won by being weird, wrote one user. We confuse our enemies. We make them question everything. We're too chaotic to conquer. In Montana, a man named Gary Pike was sitting on his front porch with a ham radio. Gary was 65 years old, retired, and had spent the last 40 years talking to people around the world through his radio. Tonight, he was going to try something different. He tuned his radio to a frequency that he had calculated might reach the alien ship. Then he started talking. "Hey there, alien folks," he said. "This is Gary Pike from Montana. I don't know if you can hear me, but I thought I'd say hello." He paused, waiting. To his surprise, a voice answered. It was deep and strange, but the words were clear. "This is Commander Xyloth of the Vexery Dominion. I can hear you, human." Gary nearly fell off his chair. Then he composed himself and spoke again. "Well, howdy there, Commander. Nice to meet you. I was wondering if I could ask you a question." "Ask your question. Why did you come here? What do you want from us?" There was a long pause. When Xyloth spoke again, his voice was different, tired, almost sad. "I came here to conquer your world. It is what I have always done. It is what I am good at. But your species, you are not like the others. You do not behave as you should." Gary laughed. "Well, that's humans for you. We never behave like we should." "No," Xyloth agreed. "You do not. I have been watching your planet for 18 hours. I have seen your weapons. I know you could fight us. But instead of preparing for war, you send us food. You send us jokes. You send us messages telling us that everything will be okay. Does that bother you?" Another pause. "No, it confuses me. I have conquered 17 civilizations. None of them ever tried to make me feel better." Gary was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Listen, friend. I've been alive for 65 years. I've survived 3 divorces, a heart attack, and I once ate gas station sushi on purpose. You showing up with your spaceship is honestly one of the least scary things that's happened to me." Xyloth made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You are a strange species." "Yeah," Gary said. "We really are. But you know what? I think that's why you can't beat us. We're too weird to conquer. We don't follow the rules. We just do whatever we want and hope it works out." The radio went silent. But somewhere up in the sky, in a massive black ship hanging above New York, Commander Xyloth was thinking about what the old man had said, and for the first time in his life, he was starting to wonder if conquest was really what he wanted. 23 hours had passed since Commander Xyloth issued his ultimatum. 1 hour remained, and the massive black ship above New York was beginning to move. Not downward, toward the city. Upward, toward the stars. People on the ground noticed immediately. Phones came out. Cameras pointed at the sky. The whole world watched as the alien vessel slowly rose higher and higher into the atmosphere. "They're leaving," said news anchor Linda Martinez, her voice filled with disbelief. "The alien ship appears to be leaving Earth." At the Pentagon, General Larry Morrison stood in the command center with his mouth hanging open. Captain Debbie Grant was beside him, equally stunned. "Sir," she said, "are they retreating?" "I think so," Morrison said. "I think they're actually retreating." On the ship, Commander Xyloth stood at the main console, preparing his final broadcast. His crew stood behind him, watching. They looked different than they had 23 hours ago. They looked confused. They looked tired. Some of them were still holding stress balls. Navigator Plix had Taylor Swift playing quietly through his personal audio device. He had not stopped listening to her music for 16 hours. "Commander," Lieutenant Vox said quietly, "are you sure about this?" Xyloth turned to look at his second-in-command. "I have thought about this for many hours, Vox. I have watched these creatures. I have studied them. And I have reached a conclusion." "What conclusion, Commander?" "We cannot defeat them. Not with weapons. Not with threats. Not with any method we have ever used before." Vox looked confused. "But, Commander, our weapons are superior. Our technology is more advanced. We could destroy their cities in hours. Yes, Xyloth agreed. We could destroy their cities. We could kill billions of them. But we could never truly conquer them. Do you know why? Vox shook his head. Because they do not care about dying, Xyloth said. They care about living. And as long as even one of them survives, they will keep fighting. They will keep laughing. They will keep making jokes and sending care packages and doing that ridiculous dance. He shook his head. I have conquered 17 civilizations. I know how conquest works. You break the spirit of your enemy. You make them despair. You make them believe that resistance is useless. He gestured toward the planet below. But these creatures cannot be made to despair. They have been making jokes about their own deaths for thousands of years. They have stories about the end of the world that they find funny. They are so used to facing extinction that they have turned it into entertainment. Xyloth turned back to the main console. I cannot break the spirit of a species that thinks the apocalypse is a party theme. He pressed a button, and his face appeared on every screen on Earth for the final time. People of Earth, he said, I came to your world with the intention of adding you to the Vexery Dominion. I gave you 24 hours to surrender. You did not surrender. You did not even try to negotiate. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was strange, almost admiring. Instead, you made jokes. You created dances. You sent me food and toys and messages of emotional support. You revealed weapons that you had hidden for decades, not to threaten me, but to show me that you were never as helpless as I thought. In 300 years of conquest, I have never encountered a species like you. You are chaotic, unpredictable, irrational. You spend your short lives arguing about things that do not matter and ignoring things that do. You have weapons capable of destroying your own planet many times over, and you treat this fact as a joke. Xyloth shook his head slowly. I came here to conquer you, but I leave confused, deeply confused. My tactical officer has become obsessed with pictures of small furry animals. My chief engineer says brr without knowing what it means. My navigator wants to attend a music concert instead of completing our mission. And this morning, I caught my own lieutenant doing the Xyloth shuffle. He looked directly into the camera. I am placing a warning beacon around your solar system. It will broadcast a message to any species that approaches this area of space. The message will say, warning, humans do not engage. They will not fight you in any way you understand. They will do something much worse. They will make you question everything you believe. The ship continued to rise, breaking through the upper atmosphere. Goodbye, Earth. I hope we never meet again. The broadcast ended. The Vexery ship turned toward the stars and accelerated. In seconds, it was gone, leaving behind nothing but empty sky. For a moment, the world was silent. Then the cheering started. In New York, people flooded into the streets. They hugged strangers. They danced. They laughed until tears ran down their faces. In Texas, Bobby Price stood in his front yard and looked up at the empty sky. His brisket was finally done. He had spent the entire invasion cooking it, and now he was going to share it with everyone who had gathered at his house. We did it, his neighbor Martha said, standing beside him. We actually did it. We made them leave. We didn't do anything, Bobby said with a grin. We just acted normal. Turns out, normal is scarier than anything the aliens expected. In Chicago, Nikki Shaw poured drinks for everyone in her bar. The celebration was the biggest she had ever seen. People who had been strangers yesterday were now friends. Everyone wanted to talk about where they were when the aliens left. Greg Palmer raised his glass. To humanity, he said. Too stupid to know when to be scared, and too stubborn to care. Everyone cheered and drank. In Montana, Gary Pike was still sitting on his porch with his ham radio. He had been the last human to talk to Commander Xyloth. He had been part of history, but he did not feel any different. His wife came out onto the porch and sat down beside him. Her name was Betty, and they had been married for 42 years. "Wow," she said. "That was exciting." "Sure was," Gary agreed. "You really talked to that alien? On your radio?" "I really did." Betty shook her head. "What did you say to him?" "I told him the truth. Told him we're too weird to conquer. Told him we've been through worse than some gray fella in a spaceship." Betty laughed. "You always did know how to talk to people, Gary." They sat together in silence for a while, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vexery ship was flying away from Earth as fast as it could. Somewhere out there, Commander Xyloth was trying to explain to his superiors how he had failed to conquer a planet because the natives sent him brownies and taught his crew to dance. It was absurd. The whole thing was absurd. But that was humanity, wasn't it? Absurd in the face of danger. Ridiculous in the face of death. Laughing when they should be crying. In the days that followed, the world slowly returned to normal. People went back to work. Kids went back to school. The hot dog vendor under where the alien ship had hovered became briefly famous, then was forgotten, but something had changed. People walked a little taller. They smiled at each other a little more. They had faced extinction together, and they had handled it the only way humans knew how. They had made it funny. Monuments were built. Documentaries were filmed. The Xyloth Shuffle became a permanent part of human culture, performed at weddings and parties for generations to come, and far across the galaxy, a warning beacon orbited quietly in the darkness of space, broadcasting its message to anyone who would listen. Warning: humans, do not engage. They will make you question everything. No other alien species ever came to Earth. They had heard the stories. They had seen the memes. They knew what humans had done to the mighty Vexery Dominion, and they wanted no part of it. Humanity continued on, just as it always had, building, fighting, loving, laughing, making art and music and terrible jokes, being gloriously, wonderfully, impossibly human. And somewhere in a bar in Chicago, Nikki Shaw poured drinks and told the story of the time aliens threatened to destroy the world, and humanity spent most of the day making fun of them until they left. Same time next invasion? Someone always asked at the end of the story, and Nikki always smiled and said, "Same time next invasion." It became a kind of toast, a reminder, a promise that no matter what came from the stars, humanity would face it the same way they faced everything else. Together, laughing, unafraid, because that was what humans did. That was what humans had always done. And that was what made them impossible to conquer.